Right, I think we can get started now. All right, thank you so much for everyone for joining today's session and letting us know where you're joining from. Really great to see lots of people from all over Australia and New Zealand. So I'm calling in today from Melbourne, from the Bayside area, and I'd like to acknowledge the Boon Wurrung people as the traditional custodians of the land that I'm on. And I also extend the acknowledgement to the traditional custodians of the land that you are on today as well. I hope you've all had a restful break and are easing back into work and staying cool if you're in any of the areas that are currently experiencing heat waves. Yeah, as I said before, I'm in Melbourne. I think it's going to get to 45 degrees today, so I'll be staying inside, I think. But so, yeah, great to have you all. Welcome back to 2026 and the first webinar for us for the year. So today we're going to be looking at how you can build an effective always-on online will campaign and calendar for 2026, and one that increases awareness of requests as well as encouraging giving over time, and importantly does so without adding to any kind of or creating any kind of donor fatigue that I know many of you experience with your organisations, and making sure that any online will activities that you're doing are seen as something a little bit different to a traditional ask that you're obviously already doing. All right, so we'll kick off with a quick introduction of me and of Gathered Here. Then we'll look at some really important goals to keep in mind when you're looking at creating your 2026 online will calendar. And then from there, we'll talk about some key legacy fundraising moments, how to align online wills with other appeals that you might be doing, and how to integrate gift and will asks into existing digital journeys with your donors and supporters. And then finally, how to create an always-on presence for your online will program. So as usual, my colleague Nicola will be answering any questions you have as we go along. If you just pop them into the Q&A. And hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end for me to answer any that she doesn't get to during the webinar. So a little bit about me. Again, lots of familiar faces and names I can see who have come today. Hello to you all. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lucy. I'm the campaigns lead at Gathered Here. So my role is solely focused on helping all of you plan and run really successful online will campaigns. So like many people are Gathered Here in the team, I come from a strong not-for-profit background. So I've worked across a range of organisations that you can see there. So I really do have a deep understanding of what actually works in day-to-day fundraising, as well as how to best support you when, time and resources are limited. So you'll see all of my contact details there. Any of you can reach out to me anytime. If you've got any questions about anything we're talking about today, I'll come back to that at the end as well. It's just lucy@gatheredhere.com.au. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me anytime. All right. So very quickly, Gathered Here. Every time I do these webinars, the numbers jump significantly. So as of a couple of weeks ago, we have now written or facilitated 130,000 wills that have been written via platform, the Gathered Here online will platform. And we are maintaining our overall customer satisfaction rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars, with over 5,500 peer reviews. So we're also trusted by over 1,000 partners from across Australia and New Zealand. And that has been since we launched our online will platform in 2020. So thanks to all of the amazingly generous people out there, your supporters, as well as the general public. We've raised an estimated future value of $1.4 billion in future income. So those pledges have all added up over the last 5 years. And yeah, obviously a very incredible amount of money to be coming to your organisations in the future. Okay, that's probably enough about us. So let's get to the actual presentation. So first of all, I thought it would be good to start by looking at the goals of what an online will calendar are. So I guess before we get into that, the most important thing to understand is that first and foremost, online wills are about delivering genuine value and a tangible benefit to your supporters. So many of your supporters may still be unfamiliar with, both online wills being a thing now, and even that potentially gift in wills or leaving gift in wills are something that they can do. Especially for our newer partners who may not have done any kind of dedicated online will activities yet. Education around both gifts in wills and online wills is really, really important. The focus in these early stages is on having really clear, reassuring messaging that explains exactly how online wills work. Making sure people know that they are absolutely secure in terms of their information that they're providing, as well as legally valid, and really highlighting that personal benefit to the supporter if they, hopefully decide to have a will. Once that messaging around that personal need is met, then you can gently invite them or introduce them to the idea of leaving a gift, but really in a respectful and thoughtful way, but with making sure that, anytime you're talking about online wills, there's absolutely no obligation that they will leave a gift. It's just a gentle invitation. It's a really nice way to kind of lead them into that journey of writing their will. So over time, of course, we want people to, we want to increase the number of confirmed requests that your organisation is receiving. And so part of, doing some planning now for the year ahead is about, working towards building a really consistent legacy channel and shifting gifts and wills away from something that sort of traditionally was quite unpredictable to something that's more intentional and sustainable. And finally, all of this needs to happen without creating any donor fatigue. So your supporters are already incredibly generous in terms of the way they give, of their time, or of their, of their financial assets. So every touch point should feel around online wills should feel helpful, timely, and really values led. Positioning the online will as a genuine benefit first and foremost, rather than just another ask or another appeal asking something of them. And so with those goals in mind, let's look at some key fundraising moments for online wills throughout the year. So in any calendar year, there are two key fundraising moments that we strongly encourage organisations to plan for. And the first is New Year, so we're right in the throngs of it now for 2026. And then the second is in September, which looks slightly different depending on which country you're from. So for Australian organisations, it's included Charity Week, which is usually held in the first week of September. And for a New Zealand organisation, it could either be Wills Week, which is in July, or it could be Wills Month, which is in September. So that's good, even more flexibility around when you run your activities. But with that said, you really can decide to do an online will campaign any time of the year. It's probably more important that if you do decide to do something, out to a broader audience, that it has its own dedicated space in your comms calendar. So it's not, interfering with any of your other fundraising activities that you're doing. So yeah, that's probably the most important thing. So yeah, as I said, those sort of, early in the new year and September tend to be, in July and for New Zealand tend to be popular times, but you really can do these activities any time of the year. So obviously New Year is in full swing at the moment. So, and there's a good reason to spend a moment on it now, because the way that your New Year activity performs can directly inform how you plan and position your activities later in the year, allowing you to sort of build on what works and refine what doesn't. So this is obviously for organisations that are here that are doing something for New Year's. If you're not doing for something for New Year's, that's absolutely fine. But this is a really good opportunity to think about when you might do some kind of bigger activity in 2026. This approach really helps create a more intentional and effective online wheel strategy across the year. So in the past, a lot of our partners have run dedicated, multi-part email campaigns to a really broad supporter base at both of these key moments. So, include a charity week, Wheels Month and New Year. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, especially in the first year or two when, your supporters aren't used to seeing that messaging. It's absolutely fine to do that in the first year or two. But what we're finding now is that for organisations that have been with us for several years, they're becoming increasingly more mindful around the risk of donor fatigue when the same supporters are receiving the same messaging multiple times a year. So I guess something for you to consider is, splitting up these two moments of, potential gift and will giving by supporter segments or by giving profile. So for example, so for this year, you might focus your New Year activity on one group, such as maybe the under 50s donors, if you collect the age data, that is. Many don't, and that's okay. Or it might be, the New Year activity is really focused on just the lapsed donors or even newer supporters. And then later in the year, you can do some activities to over 50s or regular givers, your gift in will pipeline or other more established supporters. So over the course of the year, your supporters are only getting one campaign message about online wheels per year. So I would recommend definitely planning to do some kind of online wheel activity, once a year. But yeah, only receiving one. Oh, excuse me. One communication each year. All right. So sorry, guys. Excuse me. Something stuck in my throat. Okay. So next slide. So the other idea is that, you could also mix and match your approach across New Year in September or choose other times of the year that better suit your organisation. So, for example, you might focus on lapsed donors and one-time donors during Include a Charity Week or Wheels Month, and then target new supporters or prospects at New Year's, as I mentioned before. You also might find that other periods in your calendar, such as awareness months or post-campaign periods, are a better fit for your audience. So the benefit of this approach is that it gives you more time and space to tailor your messaging for each group, which generally leads to more relevant and effective communications. So it also allows you to learn more about your supporter base by observing how different segments respond, and then you're able to refine your approach over time. So when we bring this back to the goals we talked about earlier, this approach really does tickle the boxes. So you're educating your supporters and building awareness, you're increasing digital pledges in a more consistent way, and importantly, you're avoiding donor fatigue. So if you do want to reach your entire supporter base at once, there is also an alternative approach that you can take if you want to sort of split it up into two kind of key campaigns. So rather than splitting your audience by giving profile or by segment, the other thing you could do is look at different sort of legacy fundraising moments rather than who you target. Gosh. So, for example, you might want to run a really structured multi-EDM campaign around New Year. And if this is all sounding new, in terms of running a multi-EDM campaign, we've got a whole webinar on that I think I did it in December last year, and there's a whole toolkit and there's a whole bunch of resources that you can refer to if you are looking at doing something. And it's actually not too late to do something for New Year now if you want to get something out in the next week or two. But anyway, we'll go back to the presentation. So when supporters are already thinking about planning ahead, it is a good time. That's why we say New Year really is a great time to kind of ask people to think about writing a will. So doing something in the new year, but then during Include a Charity Week or Wills Month, you could take a sort of a lighter touch approach. So rather than doing those, series of emails out to a really large supporter base, you could just look at doing some other smaller channels, like just do some social media posts, maybe an email to staff offering them a free online will, or even including something in a newsletter. So then that way you're kind of spreading out the activities over those sort of 2 periods, but using different channels. So you can also layer in other channels such as Google Ads, for an even broader awareness activity, trying to obviously get acquisition and get brand new supporters on board, depending on your capacity. So with Google Ads, I always say, hopefully your organisation's got a Google Ads grant where you're getting free advertising. So really, leveraging that, because it does work really well for charities who are trying to get some brand new supporters on board. So I guess, the key to this is sort of mixing and matching outreach methods while avoiding sending the same supporters the same message via the same channel. So, of course, these key periods being New Year and September only cover part of the year. And so what's great about Gathered Here offering free online wills all year round is that, it really gives you the opportunity to build a more consistent stream of gifts throughout the whole year. And yeah, as I said, rather than just relying on those 2 key periods. And what we're going to look at now is how you can align your gift in will messaging and your online will messaging to what you're already doing in terms of appeals and other types of activities. All right. So here are a couple of simplified examples showing how online wills can naturally fit alongside your wider fundraising activity. So obviously all of your organisations have a very different fundraising calendar. But for the most part, most charities will have an end of year appeal and an end of financial year appeal, and possibly some kind of giving day throughout the year. So that's what we've tried to sort of lean into here to try and give it, some, context across multiple different types of organisations. So, these examples that you can see here give a really good snapshot of where online wills tend to work best, particularly when they are positioned as part of your thank you and receipting process rather than a standalone campaign. So let's look at example A. So this organisation runs an awareness week in March, an end of financial year appeal in June, and a Christmas appeal at the end of the year. So in this scenario, we would recommend integrating the online will offer across all of these 3 activities by weaving it into the donor thank you and receipt messaging. So especially for the end of financial year period, supporters are already thinking about their finances and future planning, which makes this the offer of a free online will a really natural and well-timed moment to mention this offer to them. So, for example, after someone donates, you can thank them for their support, as you obviously would do anyway. If someone made a donation through your website, say for an appeal, they'd receive a thank you letter with a receipt attached, either by email or mailed. So, offering a free online will as a simple way to sort of additional way to thank them for their support as part of that receipting process is a really, really nice way to kind of include it as part of that stewardship journey. Really, again, leading into this idea of it being a great benefit for the supporter first and foremost, which gives you the kind of excuse to use it as part of your stewardship process. And we're going to have a look at an example in a second. And with example B, so this organisation has an emergency appeal in February, Giving Day in June, and then they do a peer-to-peer event later in the year. So here we would also include a short paragraph offering the free online will following all three of these activities. So the emergency appeal, the Giving Day, and the peer-to-peer event. So in each case, the online will is positioned as part of the post-donation thank you rather than as an additional ask. So this works really well because the donation has already happened. The focus it remains on appreciating and thanking the supporter, but also offering them something genuinely useful in return. So in both examples, the key principle is the same. So you are not asking donors to choose between giving now or giving later. You are simply thanking them for their support and offering them something valuable, and then giving them the opportunity to leave a gift if they wish. So let's look at the messaging. All right. So this would be considered best practice receipt messaging when it comes to online wills. So as you can see here, rather than positioning a will as another appeal or ask, this approach reframes the will as a genuine thank you to the donor. As I said before, the donation has already happened, so the focus stays on the appreciation first. And then the online will is introduced as a practical, supportive tool or offer for your supporters. It acknowledges that many supporters may not have a will yet. And as I've said many times before, I think we're still around the 50 to 60% mark of people, Australians and New Zealanders, who don't have a will when they should. So that message will definitely resonate with many of your supporters, I dare say. The language is, but this is really important that, and, I say this for any time you're talking about online wills, whether it's in a receipt or in an email, on your social media, it's really important that people know that it's an option to leave a gift. It's not an obligation. It's just, we want to thank you so much for your support. This is where the money is going to be going the donation you've just made. As another, gesture of our genuine support for your gift. We know that many of our supporters may not have a will yet. That's why we want to offer you a free one with free updates for life. And then you'll notice that there's an option to leave X organisation a gift if that feels right for you. It's just a really nice way to introduce them to not only the online will, but the idea of leaving a gift. So hopefully when they click on that link in your receipt letter, which will go to your landing page, which hopefully most of you have set yours up by now, but we're going to have a look at one in a second. When they get to that landing page, they continue on the journey from the landing page, write a will, and leave you a nice gift in their will. So this kind of messaging works really well across, as I said before, email receipts, thank you emails. Any time you're talking about online wills, just making sure that it's a very gentle introduction to leaving a gift without obligation. Yeah. So just a couple of points on why this receipt-based messaging works so well. So I know that, for many of you, that can sometimes face reluctance internally around, muddying the waters, I suppose, around, that legacy messaging might cannibalize other active campaigns where, obviously the everyday giving activities are so important. And you don't want to be detracting from any of that. And we know that, a gift and will ask is a very different ask to an everyday giving ask, and they don't take away from each other. But I think there is the perception still sometimes within organisations that they're sort of in competition with each other. So it is what it is, and we often have to work with that internally. But this approach can really help put colleagues' minds at ease because it really doesn't interrupt the primary ask at all. The donation has already happened, and the focus really stays firmly on appreciating the supporter, giving them a really useful tool, and then a very gentle, invitation to leave a gift if they want to. So it also avoids competing with urgent or active campaigns, as I said before. the messaging sits within a receipt, so the supporters aren't being asked to choose between giving now or giving later. They're hopefully going to do both. So receipt moments are also times when people naturally reflect on their finances and future planning, which makes this a more relevant and comfortable place to introduce a free online will. And the other thing is that over time, when people are constantly seeing little mentions of gifts and wills or online wills, it just normalizes it. It normalizes legacy giving. It normalizes people having wills, so that in 10, 20, 30 years, we're not in a position we are at the moment where we've got so many people that don't have one. So it just becomes like a normal thing, like paying your registration or doing your taxes. Every year, do I need to update my will this year? Has anything changed? So it just becomes normal. All right. And again, just, reverting back to the goals we talked about earlier. So this absolutely ticks all of those boxes. So aligning online wills with existing appeals and touch points. You're steadily building awareness of online wills without needing to necessarily have a standalone campaign. Or we would, ideally you do an series of emails, but even if you just did to start with some, adding this to your receipt letters, and maybe doing a newsletter article to educate people around online wills and gifts in wills, that would be a really great place to start. And I guess because this messaging is woven into activities that already exist, it really helps create a more consistent stream of potential gifts throughout the year, especially with the receipt messaging. It would be a set and forget. It's just always on. It's just something that's going in the background. And you're able to, get a consistent stream of gifts throughout the year rather than just relying on those sort of two big spikes, being New Year and September. And really importantly, it does all of this while avoiding donor fatigue. So supporters aren't being asked to give more or give differently necessarily. They are simply being offered a tool that hopefully they will, they will need. Can I just say some of your supporters may already have a will, and that's absolutely fine. This might even serve as just something in their brains to go, oh, okay, I don't need a will because I've got a solicitor will or I'm using a different provider, but next time I update the will, I'm going to make sure I include a gift to this organisation. So the same principles really do apply when we think about integrating gift and will messaging into your broader digital supporter journeys. So again, this isn't about creating new activities and creating more work, but it's about looking at and identifying existing touch points and gently layering that legacy messaging where it feels appropriate. And so, these moments are often quieter and more reflective and therefore well suited to conversations about future planning. That might include welcome emails, anniversary or birthday emails or cards, thank you emails, as we've just touched on, even event registrations and donor surveys. So, an online will offer, and I know I've said this many times before, but it's really effective when we're thinking about, cancellation emails that are going out to when donors are about to become lapsed, or even existing lapsed donors. Because, when someone isn't able to give as regularly or at all, they will most likely still really have deeply care about your organisation. So introducing a free online will at this point offers a way for them to continue the relationship in a really respectful and, pressure-free way. And it creates an opportunity for your lapsed supporters or lapsing supporters to make a really meaningful contribution, to your organisation in the future with no financial impact during their lifetime. And they can potentially have the opportunity to leave quite a substantial gift in their will. Even if it was 1% of their estate, could potentially be a lot more than they were ever able to leave during their lifetime. And that's an incredibly powerful thing. And so by using, these familiar points in stewardship journeys, and then making sure that you're keeping the tone very much around that appreciation. We want to offer you a free online. We will say thank you, and then the optional choice to if they want to leave a gift to your organisation. It really does help normalise legacy giving as part of the supporter journey. And so over time, this builds awareness and trust without adding to donor fatigue or disrupting your other core fundraising activities. Before we move on to the final slides, I just want to look at the donor surveys in a bit more detail, because I know a lot of organisations do donor surveys. If you're a smaller organisation and you don't do donor surveys, that's absolutely fine. It's one of those things. I think if they're great to do, but they can be quite resource heavy. So do not worry if you're not doing them. But for those that are, or those that are thinking about it or planning on doing one, donor surveys, they are a really great way to build your legacy pipeline, helping you identify those categories of gift and will donors, being inquirers, considerers, intenders, and confirmed bequesters. And they work really well because they're kind of low pressure and supporter led. So rather than asking people to take action, you're simply giving them the option to express interest in their own time and on their own terms, and responding to the questions that you're asking. So they also help you capture intent rather than making assumptions. So instead of guessing who might be open to legacy giving, supporters can tell you directly where they're at in their their gift and will journey. Like, are they at the stage where they're intending to leave a gift? So maybe they already have a will, and next time they're going to go update their will, they're going to include your organisation. Or maybe they don't have a will yet, but they're like, well, when I do get a will, I will most likely leave a gift. And obviously that's where, being able to follow up with those, especially with that audience or with inquirers as well, sending them a link to your landing page makes it so easy for them to write a will and leave you a gift. And so that's the great thing about donor surveys. They do create a really clear follow-up pathway. And as you can see here, just a simple tick box like the one shown, it gives you the opportunity to respond in a really relevant and appropriate way. And this might be sharing more information about, gathered here and, online wills and, and probably sharing, as I said before, your landing page link, which has a whole bunch of information for your will writers around the process of writing a will online, why it's important, some really high level kind of FAQs around the legal side of things. So it's that education piece. And so you're able to share that with them, and then hopefully they'll decide to act from there. And again, surveys help normalise legacy giving as part of the supporter journey. So it's just keeping the conversation respectful, optional, pressure-free, and very much led by the supporter. So this next point is really important. I've just talked about landing pages a little bit. So, because it kind of builds on everything we've talked about, around this idea of the supporter first messaging, or the benefit to the supporter first. So your landing page really needs to reflect this messaging. So if you haven't already done this, I would recommend refreshing your landing page content. If you remember, in your landing page, you've got the first two sections that you can customize. So, and we can share as well, after this session, we can share some of the best practice landing pages with you, or you can reach out to me anytime. But, really, again, leaning into this idea of this being a gift of a free online will. So you can see here, this is for New Year's, but you could do this. This is a generic one, so it's not necessarily for New Year's. It's just a gift in general. So, really focusing on that first section, leading with the supportive benefit first and foremost. So, saying that writing a will is a really simple and meaningful way to take care of loved ones, and you're offering a free online will, and it's really important for everybody to have a will, and this is a way we can thank you for your support. And then then so that shift away from, because I know a lot of you may still have that messaging on your landing page where it's really focused in that first section is really focused on an ask straight away. So if you put yourself in the mind of a supporter, if you are going to lean into this idea of the free online will being a gift or a supporter benefit first in your messaging and say on an email that you're sending out to them, it's just so important that this first section is consistent, because you don't want them to get that email, that really nice, that here's a will, thank you for your support. You'll notice there's an option to leave us a gift. They click on the landing page and then they get hit over the head with an ask straight away. Like, it's just not a very kind of ideal journey for them to go on. So really important to think about changing that messaging on that first page to be leaning into this idea of it being a gift. And because the other thing is that this shift away from it being just another ask to being supporter benefit focused is that it really meets your supporters where they're at. A lot of people won't necessarily be thinking about writing a will or leaving a gift when they get whatever communication they're gonna see. So we just need to, as I said, just be really mindful of where they're at, and make sure that first and foremost you're focused on giving them something of value, and then the offer of a free online, the invitation to leave a gift if they want to. The other thing that it does is it increases completions and conversions. So we know this. This is what the data we've seen it, that this is when our partners use this messaging, it absolutely increases the conversion and the completion rate. So it really, really does make a big difference. And so, because when the message really speaks to what matters in life right now, people are far more likely to start and finish their will. Once that foundation is in place, the conversations about legacy can happen more naturally and without pressure later on as well. And so the second section of your landing page is where you can gently introduce the idea of leaving a gift. So as you can see here, rather than leading with legacy language at the top, we're removing that, moving it down to this second section, and positioning it just as an optional part of the will writing journey. So at this point, supporters have already engaged with the idea of getting their own affairs in order, and it makes it just a much more natural moment to introduce this idea of leaving a gift, but without pressure. So the tone we're aiming for is just simple and supportive. So if this feels meaningful for you, you'll have the option to leave a gift to our organisation after your loved ones are taken care of. So this approach consistently does three important things. So it increases will completions because the initial focus stays on the supporter, as I mentioned before. It maintains trust by being clear and choice-led, and it still creates a genuine opportunity for those supporters who are ready to leave a gift to do so, but in their own time and on their own terms. So there are some other ways that to support, an always-on presence throughout the year that you could consider. So, we strongly encourage having a gift and more page on your website. That's really easy to find from your homepage, and having some really clear and strong call to action buttons, write my will for free, buttons that are really easy to find on your gift and more page. And so, and having that page being a central hub for your supporters to have all the information they need about a free online will, but also about, if they do need to go and see a solicitor because they've got a more complex estate, you've got all of that, those instructions as well about how they can add your organisation to a solicitor drafted will. So from there, you can then gently reinforce this message across other digital channels. So maybe it's even with your website, it might be a homepage banner or a pop-up. When someone comes to your gift and will page, they get presented with a pop-up saying, write your will for free. And I know a couple of our partners do that and have some good success from that. And even with banners or ads on your website, you could potentially, if you can get some space, have those running throughout the year as well. And sharing legacy stories or of confirmed bequesters For premium partners, you'll have access to all the donor information. So it'd be great if you have a story from an actual confirmed donor that's come through, confirmed bequest that's come through, gathered here to talk about why they've given. And just, obviously, again, that idea of normalising it amongst other supporters. But looking at things like newsletters, social media, just doing some organic posts, internal intranet, doing some emails or again, recommend one email to staff or one kind of communication to staff per year, offering them a free online will as well. Again, even more so for your staff is to really not be focused on the gift so much. It's more about the staff benefit of a free online will. And hopefully those people will become, advocates for your gifting will program, even if they've decided not to leave a gift. They've written a will, they can understand what's involved in leaving a gift if they wanted to. And then finally, this approach can also extend beyond digital, so printed collateral. So I know many of you have postcards and bookmarks that we've designed for you, which can be used a whole bunch of different ways. And, even with postcards for events, having them as part of a goodie bag. For those of you that have charity stores, inserting postcards or bookmarks in with each purchase. Again, leading with this idea of it being a way to acknowledge someone's support first and foremost, and then the idea of leaving a gift. Google ads, mentioned before, traditional advertising, if you've got budget for that. They can all play a really important role, in in having an always on presence for your organisation. Right. So finally, I just wanted to touch on the role credits can play. So as many of you will know, credits are the currency that we use to for our partners to actively have a presence and promote your organisations to brand new external audiences on the Gathered Here platform. So we have around 5,000 people a month writing wills with us at the moment. So it just obviously gives your organisation some a profile and an ability to be listed in front of these brand new supporters. So the strategies that we've most of the strategies we've mentioned so far are really great for generating gifts and wills from your existing supporters. So, on there, that those activities are really important because they don't cost you anything. It's, even as a basic partner, you get absolutely unlimited access and use of your own dedicated landing page, and any gifts that come through your own landing page are completely free because they're from your own supporters. It's your own activities. Credits are different in that they are a way of reaching people who are external to your organisation. And so, credits are now available to basic partners as well. And we've just launched some credit subscriptions. There's a whole bunch of options available. So if that's of interest, you can reach out to me and I can put you in touch with the right, or set you up with the right subscription. But that is just something to think about if you are really wanting to try and build up your pipeline of confirmed bequesters from people outside of your organisation. All right. That's the end. So hopefully today has given you some practical ideas for things to include in your 2026 campaign calendar. So I guess the key takeaway is that you could do, a dedicated activity. So say a New Year on include a charity week or Wills Month. But in addition to that, if you can think about any of your existing activities that you could potentially introduce the idea of free online will as part of those kind of stewardship processes for your for any existing activities that you're doing, and having that combination of would guarantee a kind of steady stream of gifts throughout the year and not just in those key periods. So if you have any questions, just email me, lucy@gatheredhere.com.au. We'll be sending out a follow-up email as well to all of you, which will have some really great resources in it too. Time are we at? We've got 15 minutes. Okay, I'm going to have a look at the chat now and see whether there's any questions that I need to answer. Thanks, everyone. Okay, Q&A. Hi, Lucy from Gail. Hi, Gail. Hi, Lucy. Do you have an example of a welcome journey for supporters who have taken up the offer? I do. I do. We've got, yes, so I've got a suggested email for that first email. And actually, I might just talk about this a little bit. Stewarding online will donors versus traditional will donors. And I guess this is probably more for our premium partners because obviously our basic partners don't have access to contact information unless you upgrade. But for our premium partners, when you are getting confirmed gifts in through Gathered Here, rather than I would, this is based on a lot of feedback from our partners that, people don't traditionally, high touch point stewardship strategies were absolutely the norm for the more traditional bequesters. And that is totally valid still. And definitely keep doing that for your traditional, people that have left a gift via a solicitor. And they tend to be older and they want to be invited to events and the phone calls and the birthday cards, all of that's great. For your online will donors, for the most part, they don't necessarily need all of that. And so in the email that I'll put this into the follow-up, we can put this into the follow-up email, but yeah, it's really that initial email to say thank you for their gift. So rather than calling them, because people don't pick up their phones anymore, send them an email, keep it all online because they've come to you via a digital format. Keep it online as much as possible. But in that initial email to say thank you, you also give them the opportunity to tell you how they want to be communicated with. So you can give them some options. Do you want me to call you? Do you want me to email you? Do you want to receive stuff in the mail if that's what you do? So give them some options based on whatever your stewardship process is. And then also give them a get out of jail free card. So, because a lot of the time people may not even respond to that email. They put you in their will. It's a bit of a set and forget type thing. So even at the end of that, in the recommended email, it says, if we don't hear from you, that's absolutely fine. You have my contact details now. If you ever want to reach out, we'll include you on a newsletter database. So really something really simple like that, very respectful, and again, meeting your supporters where they're at. So yes, scale, I'll share that with you and we'll see if we can put it into the follow-up email as well, because it's a really important piece of the welcome journey. Sarah, do you recommend the gift and will ask into all donation receipts, or would you look at a targeted option when a person has only just made their first gift or down the line on their journey? That's a good question. To be honest, I would. You could do it for all donations, but if I were you, I'd probably want to test it first. So I would maybe test it with, maybe your end of financial year appeal. Or even what a lot of our partners have done is the end of financial year regular giving, receipt that they get, which is for all their donations throughout the year. You could even test it with that audience, put it in, as part of that receipt that they get, emailed or sent in July or whenever it is. Maybe test it with that a smaller audience, see how it resonates, and then you could potentially look at rolling it out across, just having it as a standard part of your receipting process. Oh, Sue, I've actually done exactly all last year, have never had one single response. I'm wondering whether that's the receipts. Not sure. Maybe, she's responding. No, the email. The email to support it. Maybe Sue, do you want to send me what you've sent out, and I'll have a quick look at it. I'm assuming it's an email out to a really broad group of supporters. Also about different options to contact us. Maybe Sue, maybe do you want to reach out to me and just send me through everything that you've done? Because I'm not sure of all of the details of that campaign, and we can see whether we can move the needle. Oh, no, it's only those who have done their gift and will to us from Gathered Here. Oh, sorry, with you. Okay, so yes, like I was saying before, that's what I hear from most partners. So very much across the board. And I think just normalizing that, that is normal for, people to not respond. And it doesn't mean that they're upset or they're not engaged. It just means that they're busy and they don't need a lot of stewardship. So yeah, I think that's absolutely, and that's why we say now, just send them an email, give them the option to, tell you how they want to be communicated with. But if they don't respond, just make sure they're receiving newsletters. Um, okay. Do you recommend? Okay, I did that one. Okay, I think Nicola is answering that question. Is there any others? Just having a look. Any other last minute questions? Don't think so. All right, there we go. 10 minutes early, everyone. Um, Let you get back to your lunch break if you're having one. But yeah, great to see you all here. And yeah, as I said, we'll send out a follow-up email with some resources that we've been referred to during this session. Reach out to me anytime. I am really focused now on just this campaign side of things.